This video is sponsored by Battle City Gym. Check them out for all your singles and sealed product needs. Hey guys, it's Mike.
And Scott.
From Deep Wood Force of Will. That's a nice echo in here, actually. So, I know it's been a while since we posted a video because we've all been super busy, especially preparing for what we're showing you today.
Yes.
Scott and I both went to ARG Hartford, Connecticut this weekend, Saturday, December 2nd. I ended up getting 10th place, Scott got 15th. There was a total of 31 players there, since pre-release weekend is probably causing some people to stay back, but whatever. The tournament was great, saw a lot of friendly, familiar faces, and met some new people there too. We played some really, really fun, really creative and interesting decks, and the one that I brought today was it's Mikage. So I ended up bringing Mikage because I just figured, you know what, I know that I'm going to face a lot of pretty heavy aggressive decks, some tempo decks, and I should always have a nice matchup against them, probably a nice matchup against Control, and I personally like to play Mikage a lot. So I brought this to a 3-win, 2-loss record, ending up taking 10th place, of course, at the end of it all. But yeah, I was also the highest seed Mikage player there. Not really much to brag about, none of them were in the top spots, but anyway. The deck was super fun. It was just like a lot of control, a lot of hand manipulation, Resonator removal. The only thing we didn't have removal for was J-Rulers, which we'll get to in a little bit, and I'll explain why that was such a problem. But for now, let's go over the ruler. So of course, as most of you know, Mikage is a Darkness ruler, Wanderer, Judgments for 3, 2 black and 1 colorless, Energizes for black, and you can pay black to deal 100 damage to a Resonator and put a blood counter on him. Then once you start amassing your blood counters, you can flip him over for 3, and he becomes Eternal Vampire, Seijuro Mikage. He's a 900/900 vampire with Imperishable and Flying, and you can use his blood counters that you got on the front side to either A, give him plus 200 attack, B, give something your opponent controls -100/-100, C, gain 200 life, and D, put a +100/+100 counter on a Vampire Resonator you control. So, a lot of really good effects. Basically becomes a bunch of free effects on the backside as long as you've been able to mass your counters on the front side. So, knowing how to just kind of throw counters around, throw damage around, it's really nice when you're playing Mikage. Still lineup I was playing was pretty simple. This was a tricolor deck, black, red, white. So, of course, we have 4 Magic Stone of Scorched Bales, being your main red-black source. We have 4 Magic Stone of Heaven's Rift, being your white source, black and white. And then lastly, we have 2 Magic Stone of the Ebon Home, being your last red-black source, and also having the added benefit of removing the top card of your opponent's deck from the game. That came in handy a couple of times during the tournament, when I would hit key cards off my opponent's top of the deck. I've hit Sylvia's when facing the Fairer matchup, I've hit Friggs, I've hit Dreams of Flight twice in a matchup against this weird, awesome Zero deck that was really fun to play against. So, stones were pretty simple. There's only one time where having only 4 white sources ended up hurting, but for the most part, this ratio was fine. I wouldn't change it. Going into the main deck, 40-card main deck, very small Resonator count. The first of which we had was 4 Shade, Envoy of Darkness. This card is absolutely insane. Shade is probably one of the best 2-drops in the game just because it's a 6/4 body, which is okay, but it can tap itself, deal 600 to something, you gain 600 life, so you can always just tempo out your opponent and make sure that you nullify basically any Resonators they're putting on the board. And towards the late game, whenever you tap for a Darkness Stone, you can pay 3 mana to add them back to your hand and just continue to recycle that effect. So, seeing Shade in the early game is really good against aggro, seeing the late game is great against control, all around just a sick card. Let's play 2 Abdul. Abdul came in handy in mainly the Fairer matchup, just because having it out just a turn before they're able to play their Maribel means that you retain some tempo. Their Maribel doesn't automatically gain a ton of advantage just from getting its triggers off with the resonance, so having the Abdul there is great. Otherwise, not the best card. It was definitely better in Fox format, but still a really good card for when you're trying to just kind of shut off your opponent's resources. From there we also had 2 Arla, Demonic Flying Ace. Arla was an idea for having more control over the game. Unfortunately, just didn't really pull its weight too much and ended up just being a 700, 800 flying body most of the time. But every so often I would pay 200 life, deal some extra damage around if I didn't have the mana to use Mikage's ability, so just an overall fine card. Not the best one I've seen, but it did its job for the tournament. I probably would change it out in the future. I also played 2 Gill Lapis, Usurper of Maddening Power. Being able to search out a multitude of one-drop spells in this deck, which you'll see in a moment, is great. It toolboxes the whole deck on its own, and the fact that it comes with precision is really nice for when you need to just remove something that's really causing some problems for you. And it fits in with your colors. And the last Resonator we had was Blazer, Prisoner of Flame. I actually didn't see him in my hand once during the entire tournament. Certain matchups he definitely wouldn't have been good against, mainly speaking of Zero. Facing that deck he would have been complete dead weight. He's a little bit slow for the favorite matchup. He was more in there for control, but I really didn't face much control today. So, didn't do his job very well, but still was there just in case I needed him. And that's the full count of 11 Resonators. Moving on, we have 26 spells, so got a decent number here. First and foremost, of course, we play 4 Lethal Arrow and 4 Demonflame. Basically, Mikage gets to play 8 copies of Stoning to Death in multiple colors, which is absolutely insane. Just having the ability to use a counter, hit something by using Will, and then Lethal Arrowing or Demonflaming it away is obviously crazy, and Mikage does it the best. So these cards are great. No Rush Mataro, even though some people have sworn by that card. In testing, it just felt really slow, having to spend Will to ping, and then spending 2 Will to play a body that could get cancelled, could also not get cancelled, but, you know. It's the price you pay. Moving on, we also have the discard package that we brought. Start off with 4 Nameless Mist. This is probably most important just because Mikage deals so well with Resonators. Being able to knock out your opponent's non-Resonator spells is great. And the +1/+1 counter can sometimes be advantageous. We also have 2 Scorn of Dark Alice, because being able to preemptively hit a Resonator out of the hand is really good. And then we also had Unending Hatred, which basically just does both of their jobs, but removes the card from the game, which is nice against certain matchups, especially with like Remnant spells or recurring Resonators. And also has the second added benefit of being able to destroy all 1-cost minions your opponent controls, which is pretty good, because you can just pay 2 to destroy all little reds your opponent's favor deck is playing. So, multiple modes, multiple modality, cards are just really good for that regard. And the last cards we played for our searchable stuff off of Gill was 1 Heteroclite Excalibur and 2 Final Battle. Heteroclite doesn't really come in handy too much today. It's searchable if you need immediate spot removal, but most of the time I didn't. And then Final Battle was just an insane card all day. A lot of things have barrier, a lot of things just like to amass a board, and once they do that, you can just do that. This is also really important because it's the main answer you have to J-Rulers, because it's one of the only cards in the deck that hits J-Resonators. So, definitely a key card for making sure you don't just auto-lose. Something that separated me from most of the Mikage players today was that I was actually playing a Fog package with 4 Amaterasu's Foresight. I personally love Amaterasu's Foresight, and I personally find that it's a very, very strong card in Mikage, just because of how kind of stalling yourself a turn will always net you some advantage with Mikage, because you can just throw damage around with his front side ability. So being able to use this a lot of the time in the aggro matchup, this saved me a ton, and being able to use Nameless Mist, knock out a favorite spell from your opponent's hand, and know that you're safe to play your Amaterasu's Foresight the next turn is fantastic. So once you know that your opponent has the potential to kill you, you can easily just Foresight and know exactly what the next end result is going to be. So predictive card, very, very weird to play, I would say, but very necessary for the style of play that I was going for here. And then 2 more spells I had were Lumia's Judgment and Schrodinger's Observation, 2 of the X-cost spells. Lumia's Judgment, I didn't really see much. Neither did I see Schrodinger's Observation too much. These two were mainly in here. Schrodinger's Observation just to make sure that I can stall out in the late game, or just remove target threats and just gain back life, because this deck definitely needs life gain when you're final battling everything. And then Lumia's Judgment was mainly in there because I feared that I might see Kaguya today, which is one of the only decks that Mikage can't deal with, just because everything has barrier, but everything is below a 2 cost, so paying 4 to wipe their board with Lumia's Judgment, including all of their kimonos, would be fantastic. Didn't see a single Kaguya today. I don't know if anybody brought it, but this card just kind of pulled its weight when dealing with some additions as well. So all-inclusive removal is really nice. And the last cards we had were 3 additions, 2 Alice's World of Madness, and 0 Circle of Protection. Circle I did not see once during the entire day, so I didn't really get to figure how good it would be, but unfortunately I did face a lot of aggro today, and this card is not very good against aggro. However, World of Madness definitely is, especially when you're dealing with an elf deck, or decks that like to swarm out elves, decks that like to swarm out Tia's Falcon, decks that like to try and swing for basically no damage. World of Madness definitely buys you extra turns and makes it easier for Mikage to ping off certain Resonators with his front side ability. So establishing this in the early game is really, really strong. And that's the main deck. That's exactly 40 cards. Side deck was kind of thrown together quickly. We had a third Abdul, because Abdul, as I mentioned before, is pretty good. Certain matchups it'll be better. We had 1 Dark Alice because we had Barrier of Shadows in the Neo Barrier of Shadows in the side deck, and it's good graveyard removal. Also same with Rezzard, more graveyard removal. Just played 1 Blazer Gill Rabus the Pursuer, just because this deck does not deal well with J rulers at all. Having a card in your sideboard that just says remove the thing that your deck can't deal with is really nice. Didn't see when I needed it today, unfortunately. Was able to side it in against 0, but I didn't see it at all. In the future, I might end up putting this to 2 in the sideboard, just because this is just kind of the all-inclusive answer to that. I also played 2 Death at Midnight for mainly things with barrier, mainly just to make sure that I have good non-targeting removal, and quick cast removal is always nice, just to add on to the plethora of removal that we already have. Also 2 Burn to Cinders. This was mainly for the Mikage Mirror. Being able to remove Imperishable is great, being able to do it with your J-Ruler side is fantastic, and you have the colors for Burn to Cinders. It's good against certain cards that like to be put into the grave instead of removed from the game, so we have those. Played 2 Severing Winds. Actually did not side this in too much. I think it only saved me in 1 game against Fairer, but other than that, Severing Winds really never saw play. I personally don't like playing Severing Winds in a deck that doesn't have green to be flexible with it. If I'm restricted to only canceling the second card and my opponent's constantly playing 1 card a turn, it's just a really bad feeling. So, not the biggest fan of that in this deck, but served its purpose. Not the best thing ever. Also had 2 more Lumia's Judgment because, you know, Kaguya, fearing it. 1 more Observation, which in hindsight was extremely greedy, and I never really sided it in. Again, never saw Schrodinger's Observation in the entirety of any games I played. And then lastly we had 2 Barrier of Shadows, Neo Barrier of Shadows, just to make sure you can stop activate abilities. Also didn't tend to side that in much either, but it was there for when I needed it. If I was facing the control matchup like that, sign into Neo Barrier, sign into Dark Alice and activate it immediately. In hindsight, having a 1-to-1 Dark Alice to Neo Barrier ratio would be really nice. But hindsight's 2020. All in all, I had a lot of fun at this tournament. I faced some really, really strong opponents, some really good familiar faces, and of course some oldies that we know. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys thought of the deck. Let me know what you guys would change personally, and if you give it a try at your locals, let me know how it goes. But for now, this has been Mike
and Scott
from Deep Force of Will, signing out.